All right, welcome to Sports Report Weekly. I had to plug myself in there. I'm Dode. I'm here with Bryce.
Hello, sports fans.
Yeah, that's Bryce, repping his Blues jersey. And yeah,
Let's go Blues.
all right, this is going to be a weekly sports vidcast, podcast style talk show. It's going to be kind of long-ish, just however long it goes. Where we're going to try and keep the beer tastings, food stuff a little shorter. And the main segments of the show are going to be the 3 rounds. The first round is a local event or a conference-related event to something in our general geographic range. And I'm at the University of Missouri. Go Tigers, MIZ. And so, thank you. And so we're covering, for my end, SEC sports, maybe a little bit of just stuff in the South in general. I'm a big Saints fan, who dat, and so I'll also cover NFC South stuff and whatever. I guess NL Central, and just a little bit of basketball here and there. I mean, I'm a Pelicans fan. I've got family in New Orleans, but I grew up fan. That's the thing. I root for them because I have people that care sort of about them, but I'm definitely more of a Chicago Bulls fan. But I don't know. I'm not quite. Yeah, it doesn't quite matter. Mainly root for the Cardinals. And baseball, Mizzou Tigers, New Orleans Saints, and hockey, I cheer for the Blues, but I'm also not the biggest hockey guy around.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Big St. Louis Blues fan. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, so I'm a gigantic Phoenix Coyotes fan. Soon to be Arizona Coyotes as of next season. Not happy about that, but that's a topic for another day. Obviously, Arizona Diamondbacks, Phoenix Suns, who played one heck of a game against the Oklahoma City Thunder today, by the way.
Los Suns.
Like I said, the Diamondbacks, big Diamondbacks.
Los Suns. It's Spanish month in the NBA.
Yeah, Los Suns.
Yeah.
But also, more importantly, big soccer fan, played in college, so I am definitely the global sports aficionado, if you will, when it comes to the world's game, which is soccer.
The beautiful game. Yeah, Bryce is a big Man U fan. I'm a big Arsenal fan.
The team I coach, oddly enough, is called Arizona Arsenal, and we use the Arsenal crest with the gun in the middle of it. So that's kind of.
I want one of those shirts, man. I want to rep that.
I'll get you one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll send you a couple bills for it, or some beer or something.
It won't cost you $200. It'll cost like $25. So
that's tight because, man, soccer jerseys, football jerseys—they're all too expensive. And let's.
Without further ado, let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing that we're going to talk is local to us, something interesting to us, and me. As I'm repping my Mizzou jersey, my German Macklin from back in the day, is Mizzou basketball. They were doing well, started the season off very well, beat USC, a ranked UCLA team, and then you hit conference play, and just
the wheels on the bus came falling off.
Yeah, it was not too great. I personally, this is going to be very important. They've got a game coming up at Tennessee. We beat them here. Right now we're on the bubble, and earlier last weekend, my thought was Mizzou's got to win 5 in a row to get into the tourney. They've won 2. They need to get this win against Tennessee, and then win a couple in the SEC tournament, and I think that should cover them, especially if Florida or Kentucky wins the tournament. It's not going to eat up a team an AQ spot. This to me. Go
I
ahead.
think, to piggyback off of what you're saying there with the Mizzou Tigers this year in college basketball is that you can look at, like you were saying, some of the SEC teams, right? The Florida or the Kentucky winning that conference tournament. But there's also a lot of major conferences, as well as some mid majors that have teams that are highly ranked. You look at the SLU Billikens in the Atlantic 10. You look at the Pac-12, which is having another down year with only one team ranked in the top 25. If those higher seeded teams can go ahead and win out in their conference tournament, it's gonna make room for for more of those bubble teams, such as your Missouri Tigers.
I definitely agree. And then the thing to me, I don't know if this is fact for sure, but I'm going to go coaching staff talk about Mizzou Tigers right now. Coach Frank Haith seems like a nice guy. Only got fined a little bit for his involvement with the Tony Shapiro thing in Miami, so he's only just a little guilty. I think that's his name. Was it Tony Shapiro? Or was that the...
That sounds right.
Or was that was he a Dolphins coach?
Either way. Don't quote me.
Okay. Yeah. But so when he got hired, there was this unique thing that I would say it was probably like 75-25 with Mizzou fans. And I was in the 75. And that 75 was we just hired Frank Haith, the guy that didn't do anything with Miami basketball. We just lost Coach Anderson to Arkansas. He's a great coach. He did great things in his tenure here at Mizzou. And we got Frank Haith. I would have been much more pleased with just a mid-major guy who brought some people up, or brought their team up, or if they could have pulled off, just a sort of big name at another school. But they went with this Frank Haith guy. They saw something in him. In his first season, the team plays lights out. They're all Anderson's guys, but they play lights out.
None of his recruits, yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, I'm also a huge Notre Dame fan, and the last, I guess Brian Kelly, he's been doing okay. But before that, the last 2 or 3 coaches, they would come in, couple seasons, do well with other guys' players, and then all of a sudden it just as Bryce said, the wheels on the bus just fell off. And so, okay, so the first season, they did really well, and then they get to the NCAA tournament, and they get blown out by Norfolk State. I don't know if they're an AQ. I assume they were an AQ team.
Yes.
But it was not pretty. Now that being said, I don't think that was Haith's fault, and I don't blame it so much on the team, just because they played lights out, shooting something ridiculous, like 3/4, maybe 66% from the 3-point line. You just don't see that too often. And just guys had career games. Probably were the biggest games of their college career. So it was terrible and all. But then you go into the new conference. I really thought Mizzou could have won either the conference tournament or just the conference outright during the season. They were close, but they sort of things didn't quite work out. And there was a lot of issues in the second half of the game that just seemed like coaching wasn't doing too good of a job. And then this year, things look really good, and then all of a sudden we start facing okay opponents, and it's not looking pretty. So I don't think if they don't make it to the tourney, I would want to get rid of Coach Haith, because as I was trying to say earlier, when he got fired, 75% of the fans didn't go for it, maybe even more than that. Then there were these people that they bought in, they had it 10 inches down, they loved it, they didn't care. They were just we like this guy, and whatever Mizzou does, it's gold. It can't be wrong.
Literally.
Yeah. So you'd have discussions about the team, and there's still guys I know that are blaming the players a lot, which might be part of their fault, but the coach has to be the coach. We have good players. The coach has to get that figured out. So I don't know if we don't make it to the NCAA tournament. I think there's a good chance they would get rid of him, especially if they can go pick up Wichita State. Their coach, oh man, he's doing super things. And Wichita, from what I hear from family and friends that have been to Kansas, could be better. They got lots of Cessna stuff.
Technically, it is the largest city in Kansas.
Oh yeah, it's not that bad, I guess. It's
No,
Kansas.
it is. Have you
but
ever driven? I've driven through Wichita.
No, I've avoided
was
Kansas as much
painful.
as possible.
It was painful. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Shockers fans out there that live in Wichita.
No, my cousin's an alum, and so he's loving it. He went to the Final Four last year, had a real good time.
I genuinely started crying tears while driving through Wichita.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's my spiel on Mizzou. I think they've got to win at least 3 more games in a row, and have Florida or Kentucky win the tourney, SEC tourney. Because right now, I mean, they're in sort of like tied for 5th or 6th, something like that. The SEC is this huge jumble right there past like the 4th spot. Georgia, I think right now has a lock on the 3rd spot, which is crazy because they're barely above 500.
Their strength of schedule was pretty good. But according to Joe Lenardi on ESPN, the only 2 locks in the SEC are Florida and Kentucky, like you mentioned.
Oh yeah,
which is funny because who'd have thought the day would come that this little itty bitty conference that never meant anything, called the American Athletic Conference, would have 5 schools that are easy locks into the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
When the Big East, Pac-12, and SEC combined only have a total of 6, and 5 from the American Athletic Conference at this point are being considered locks.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, in the Pac-12, you have the blue bloods of college basketball, the University of Arizona and the UCLA Wildcats. But then the Big East, the only locks really in the Big East are Villanova and Creighton. Who?
Oh, yeah.
Right? New Big East blood. But, of course, a lot of your Big East powerhouses that you're familiar to seeing in that conference of NCAA.
I mean, Nova's always been good, but everyone else is down right now.
Well, yeah, and the American Athletic Conference with the shift of power. I mean, you've got the Cincinnati Bearcats that are in that conference now. You've got the University of Connecticut Huskies.
Bobby Huggins.
That's standard. Yeah, the UConn Huskies, the standard Big East team, moving now, as well as the Louisville Cardinals. So with the shakeup of conference here within college basketball, you've seen a lot of funky things. And as you mentioned, the Tigers really needing to do well here at the end of the year to round
the crazy thing, you have teams like SMU doing really well. They have Larry Brown.
SMU
irrelevant again all of a sudden.
I was going to say they haven't had a relevant athletic program since the Mustangs that cheated to get all those players back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. All right. So to finish my spiel, I think we don't make the tourney. I think we get rid of Hayes and try and pick up one of these other coaches that have shown they can do it at a program of equal or lesser capacity than Mizzou. And but hey, maybe he makes a run. We get to the Sweet 16, and then maybe that'll change my feelings on it. I never got why people right away were into him, and that first year blinded by, it was a talented team, and they were all seniors, or left early for the most part. All right, so Bryce, I'm going to move on to you and your local talk piece.
Gotcha. Sounds good. By the way, Tigers did win last night, 57-56 at home over Texas A&M.
Yeah, go to ESPN, look the recap of that. The last minute of that game was insanity. Steals everywhere, fouls.
It was. That game was crazy.
Yeah, is nuts. Unfortunately, I didn't go. I feel bad about that. I don't know too many people that go to the basketball games, in general.
Yeah, keep your eye on the game on Saturday. Mizzou on the road to Tennessee. Quite frankly, the winner of that game should lock up one of the last tournament spots. So
yeah, right there in Lady Ball Stadium.
Yes, sir. But interesting. We're going locally for me. Obviously, Phoenix, Arizona. You got to look at the Arizona Diamondbacks opening up their Major League Baseball season. Yes, I'm a baseball fan. It's coming. Spring training has started. The Cactus League out here is great. There's nothing better than you can do for $5 in the middle of a Saturday afternoon.
That might be the good thing about spring training baseball. I'm gonna put that out there now.
Yes,
I don't think
$5.
it's not that important. I think
No.
it's great for that aspect, though.
Yes,
You can go to
$5.
it.
You get a lawn seat, and you get to sit back in the grass in the outfield and sit and listen and watch a lot of attractive ladies hanging out at the ballpark. So, not a whole lot much better you could do for $5. That being said, when the games actually count, the Diamondbacks will be taking up 2 of their regular season home games to play legitimate regular season games down in Sydney, Australia, against the arch rivals of theirs, the Los Angeles Dodgers. The big spillover from last season is when the Dodgers clinched the division title, winning a game in Phoenix, went and climbed the fence in right field and jumped into the Diamondbacks pool that is in right center field. And there are reports of multiple Dodger players peeing in the pool, which has led to a lot of the Diamondbacks fans to believe that
Who
Coach
doesn't?
Kirk Gibson
Who
is soft.
doesn't pee in the pool?
They did. They
Yeah.
did. Puig peed in the pool. And for that, a lot of Diamondbacks fans have questioned this team's toughness. And so to start the season, they spend 2 road games, or 2 technically home games, but all the way down in Sydney, Australia. So something that's going to be interesting to look at as far as a dynamic with this season for that team, for the Diamondbacks. But more importantly for me, as a Diamondbacks fan, the dynamic of how they're starting this season off against such a team that's been such a bitter rival of theirs since their inception, in their inaugural season in 1998. The LA Dodgers have always been the model of who they're going against and who their big brother is, if you will. Obviously, the Dodgers and Giants, San Francisco Giants, both coming from the East Coast and the New York area, have that more historic rivalry. But with the amount of conference or division titles, rather, won within the last decade and a half since the Diamondbacks have been in the league, they have a legitimate argument as being one of those top teams in the National League West. Again, for the last 15 years, and this rivalry has definitely heated up, and quite frankly, the Dodgers have no one to thank but Ian Kennedy, Diamondbacks starting pitcher, for their turnaround of their season. If you remember, they were last place in the National League West and second worst record in the National League when Ian Kennedy beamed a couple of Dodgers batters, one of them being pitcher Zach Greinke, that led to an all-out benches clearing brawl. So it was great. I mean, the videos are still on YouTube, have over 1 million likes. I think they've got sponsorships on the brawls now. It's great.
Now, we saw the Cardinals and Diamondbacks play last year, and that was Kennedy as well, right, when he was pitching?
I believe Cahill threw that night.
Was it? Okay.
It might have been Kennedy. It was either Kennedy or Cahill. I know it was a C sound, I think.
I know that he got lit up.
Yes, the Cardinals batted very well that evening.
Oh, yeah.
Although they weren't, unlike the Diamondbacks pitching, someone else there wearing a Diamondbacks jersey may have gotten a little lit up that night as well. But
it was a good night.
It was. But back to this rivalry. This is something that they're going to basically be starting this rivalry in a foreign country in a lighthearted manner, which for me, advantage Dodgers, because the Diamondbacks need to come out with a little bit of fire under their heinies.
All right. Well, the big thing is that, they have this rivalry, there's an intensity going on, and then all of a sudden you take Arizona away from Arizona, make them lose home games. I don't get why they didn't split it 1-1.
Well, that would have made more sense, but even more realistically, you know what? If you're going to play a game in Australia to start your season, play the Marlins.
Oh, yeah, just make it something.
Call it an interleague series. Play the Astros. Play somebody that doesn't matter. Don't play your one division rival that, quite frankly, needs to be your par for course, if you will. It needs to be your milestone of, hey, if we can beat these guys, we've got a chance. Because that's really what it is for the Diamondbacks. They went out and made moves in the offseason. They've tried to improve the bullpen. They went out and got a bat playing out in left field now. They brought Angels outfielder Trumbo into the lineup, somebody to back Goldschmidt, so they've got a little bit more pop. I mean, Diamondbacks only hitting about 130-something home runs last year. I mean, not getting the ball out of the ballpark. They added a power bat back into the lineup. But again, there's a toughness factor that's being taken away from this rivalry now because it's being in Australia. Because Bud Selig is going to sit down with both of those managers and say, okay, we're in a foreign country trying to show off our game to an international market. I don't need to see any shenanigans.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And so they're basically being handcuffed, right, before the season even starts. You better believe first pitch of the third game, technically third game they play each other, right, in the regular season when it gets back here, oh, absolutely. Second inning, you better bet Yasiel Puig needs to be getting a fastball into his hip.
He needs one regardless of who he's playing. That dude, he's got to be humbled in some way because he's just out of control to some extent.
Well, he was certainly outclassed in the NLCS last year. That helps.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Very true. I mean, the thing to me, it's just I like these international games. I think they're kind of interesting. I get why they're not doing it in Japan again because, they're not going to get that many more fans to watch. But Australia, yeah, maybe they can pick up some fans. I'm not quite sure what they think of baseball or if they really want it.
Well, I mean, they've got cricket down there, which is boring as hell. But have you ever tried to watch a cricket match all the way through? By the way,
all the way through, no. I've watched highlights.
I got halfway through it and decided I needed to turn it off and watch figure skating because that would be more exciting.
Oh yeah.
Or
no, you're talking about doing a marathon of the Lord of the Rings movies. That's how long a cricket match. I'm sure it can go longer than that, but
cricket matches can go days. Or they have to stop and then rejoin the next day. But the worst part about it is, for me, with Australia, is obviously Australia, and this is honestly what I think the tactic is Aussies, or at least the Australian, other countries idolize the whole LA Hollywood thing, and I genuinely think because it's Los Angeles Dodgers, it's the LA, this LA, they're so.
Oh yeah, that's why they're there. It's LA.
Have you been to LA recently? Really not that special. I was there last weekend. Honestly, take it or leave it. Just me personally.
If someone wants to give it to me, I'll go.
If someone wants to pay for my stuff, I'll go hang out there. But it's just hey, well, I think they're just trying to play off the whole stigma of America, LA, bright and shiny, and all that crap, and that's why they're utilizing this. That team down in Australia, and quite frankly, pick up a couple fans because, again, it says LA, and they'll have a famous person or two go down to the game to wave at people. Hi, I'm B-list celebrity so-and-so that you guys still know down here. Okay, great, I'm at the game, having a fun time.
Yeah.
But
keep
the games here. It's just like the Rams games in London that were going to happen. Keep the games here where they belong for now. The reason that there's so much popularity of other international sports is simply because the competitions at an international level are there. Your baseball and your football, they're never going to get to the same level in other countries like soccer is. And stop trying to be that.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to our second topic, which is something in sports. Nationally, internationally, no borders. We don't have, it's completely unrestricted. Things can be crazy, and I'm torn.
I already went international on you.
Yeah. Do what?
I was saying I already went international. I went crazy.
Oh, well, in a way, yeah.
I went locally national. By the way, this is this podcast brought to you by.
Then Marumi. Yeah, that's
the best.
Oh yeah, gotta tip it. But No, so I'm torn between two soccer, football-based things. Um, and so I think I'm going to sort of lightly touch both of them, and then we might go on with more of it, or we'll see what happens. But my number one thing, I'm a Gunners fan. Uh, Gooners, whatever, Arsenal. That's what it's all about. Started when I was a freshman in college. A buddy of mine, he went to go visit his sister, who studied at a university right next to the stadium, and so he's an Arsenal fan. I loved Manuel Almunia, crazy Euro hair Spaniard, who was really decent, had a little injury stuff, and he nearly brought a team from the, I guess, first division or whatever they call the one right below champions.
Yeah, the championship.
The championship. Yeah, and so nearly brought them up. I think they lost in like a playoff or something like that to move up to Premier. So I'm glad he's doing well. But Arsenal, they had a good strong lead for the cup this year in England, and then something I noticed last year and again this year is all of a sudden it's like the goals aren't coming in, and they're scoring goals. Like their goal differential is 24 at this point, not bad. Problem is, like four other teams are in the 30s, and you can't be losing 1-0 to middle to low end teams. It's rough to see that happen. And last year, they weren't really going to run at the championship, but they were going to, they still made it into the UEFA stuff, but their goal differential almost, had they been right on the edge, they just weren't scoring as much as Chelsea and Man City and, or I guess Man U last year. Man U last year was nuts.
They're scoring goals left and right.
Yeah, and that just it's disappointing. I'm not sure what you do, if you're the coach, if you're Arsene Wenger, but you can't be letting people like RVP go. Like pay him the money a couple years ago. Instead, he goes to Man U. They do well. It's just, and that happens too often. And that ties back to Missouri because Kroenke owns those guys, and Kroenke owns majority of the Rams and a bunch of teams out in Denver. He's a Mizzou guy, married a Walmart heir. I don't know exactly where the money came from first with him. I'm pretty sure.
Commercial real estate.
With all the Walmart properties, yeah. That was the thing. Is like he developed all like the Walmart properties in a lot of them in Missouri. I know that for sure, and probably out west, I'm guessing. But so that's my bit on Arsenal. They just got to score more goals. They got to get that figured out. It would be nice to see them, at the very least, if they can play UEFA next year, but not have to, because they had to play in like the play-in rounds, and that was the thing that I think they were a point back. But if they would have been tied up with Chelsea, if they could have had the goal differential, it would have been nice.
Right.
But I don't know. The other thing that is probably more interesting to Americans is the Americans friendly with Ukraine. It's a friendly. It's over in Cyprus, I believe. And
Baseball.
Exactly. They got faced hard. It's a friendly match. It's not. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It just would have been nice to see a draw or at least score. But it seemed like Ukraine just like turned it on, which maybe for them, I think it was probably a good thing because they've got this, evil Putin guy trying to take over their little island, Crimea, Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula, and so I'm hoping that usually sport finds a way to uplift people. So maybe in a noble cause, it was better that they won that friendly. But, so it didn't count for anything. I'm not too upset about it, but I hope it's not a reflection of the U.S. soccer team.
Yeah, I mean, kind of piggybacking off of both things, I'll go in reverse here. We'll start with Ukraine. Definitely frustrating just because The one thing that Jurgen Klinsmann talks so much about, and we all know really wins championships, and it's as cliche as it may sound, it really is defense. And I feel like because of this friendly, the United States national team has never been more unsure of what is going to go on their back line than they are right now. And that's the biggest thing for me is going into the World Cup. You've got the biggest tournament in the world in existence for, since the original, Olympics.
Speaking of that real quickly, which maybe we'll touch, I don't know if you want to touch on that after we talk about this, but the World Cup, that's looking interesting.
That'll be a good topic for the next couple of weeks as we get closer to it. But for me, it's just that the fact that that something is so uncertain. They had so much great momentum winning the group, winning their region here to get into the World Cup. In quite frankly, in dominant fashion, only losing a couple games because of, slight miscalculations, by a couple players, really, quite frankly, could have completely run the table in their group. But a lot of questions raised in that game still, and it's frustrating because so much great momentum has been built during qualification, and to get to that point and kind of leave them scratching their own heads a little bit is a bit concerning. I mean, obviously, going back to Arsenal, like you mentioned, it's great, that they've been able to maintain a spot in the top four. You mentioned having to play in for, Champions League qualifications last year. But you mentioned recently the lack of goals being scored. I mean, they have scored, like you said, 52 this season. Liverpool, who's even on them in points at the table, has 73.
Yeah.
Leading the Premier League, but then you've also got Manchester City with 69. So, a different style of soccer from Arsene Wenger. You're used to seeing those high-flying gunners, putting 3 and 4 in the net per game. And I think that, to your point about, just slowing down is the amount of matches they've played, because, again, they have had all of their Champions League matches. They had to play into the Champions League this year. They've had plenty of matches where they've gone deep within the with their respective FA Cup.
They went deep with all the different opportunities so far.
I think just number of matches has really started to wear on them, and it's funny because I'm obviously a huge Manchester United fan, and seeing them down in 7th right now on the table at 45 points is what's the right word? Painful. Knowing that unless they win out for the rest of the season, there's a very high likelihood they're not even going to play in Europe next year, which would be the first time since I believe 1983.
That could be right. I mean, I know Arsenal's been in Europe in the top part of it for a decade or maybe even more than that. I'm not quite sure the last time they finished out of it. And the same thing with Man U. You don't see that happen, especially, I bet the people that, like Man U fans and Man U themselves, I'm sure they're pissed. But the thing that I'm betting upset some people is that they're doing so poorly that they're not even going to play Europa. And the people
they're one spot out.
Well, yeah, I mean, they should be able to make it, I would say. But if they don't, that would have been such a huge catch for that tournament because they're such a big name and it would bring in viewers and money. But to think that they might not make it to that is shocking just because that team is good players, money. They're sort of the Yankees, currently the Yankees of the UK.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny because, you go back looking at Manchester United and, they were the first English club to get into European play back in 1956. And since then, they've competed in every different organized competition.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Obviously, 99, the great treble year where they won the FA, the league, and the Champions League trophy. But it's painful as a United fan and as an Arsenal fan. They still do if they can pick up their matches. Arsenal still does have an opportunity to win the league. Obviously, only 4 points back of Chelsea with 10 games to play.
I just want them to win some silver, man. They haven't picked up a piece in a long
They've been
time.
it's been a while since they've brought home some hardware to
Yeah,
what was what was Highbury and is now the
yeah,
new Arsenal ground, but the
yeah.
Emirates, right?
Emirates,
Yeah,
beautiful stadium. I'd love to catch a game or a match there sometime.
that's on my bucket list for sure.
Yeah. All right. Any more international stuff?
International, we are Golden Richards, sir.
Okay. Well, so now the last part is our each pick for game of the upcoming week, what we're most excited for. And mine, I had two, just because I didn't want to bore everyone with Mizzou. But for Mizzou to make the NCAA tournament, they gotta beat Tennessee. So that's sort of my game of the week, college basketball wise. And I'm trying to think. I thought I had some other thing that was the other thing, not quite the standard game, but I wonder what's going to happen down in Doral. Like, I haven't checked the score for today, but I wonder what.
Yeah, you saw Duffner at 5 under at one point.
Okay, yeah. So Duff, I think
he's done.
I think whoever's
better.
leading is down at 2 under, and like Woods is at +3, so he's 5 back, and he's still in it. I want to see Woods do well, and I was never a big Tiger Woods fan growing up, but then all of a sudden he hit this like terrible patch of life, and I liked that. Like, I'm a John Daly fan. I like the scruffy
Strippers and cocaine.
Yeah. Dip that cocaine in that chicken wing first. Yeah. Or dip the chicken wing in the cocaine.
I liked it the other way around, but go ahead.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I like looking at, like, cheering for a dude that's gone through some adversity. I think, unless you've had the perfect life, it's sort of nice to see someone, go through stuff and have them win something. And really, I want to see, the Masters coming up. We'll get into that, but it'd be cool. I just want to see what's going to happen with Woods. He pulled out last week, not his first time, but had some back spasms, aka I'm playing very poorly right now. It's embarrassing. So I want to see him do well at Doral and go into the Masters, looking good. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Really, it's, I'm cheering for Mizzou, but I think big picture, the thing I'm interested in most is see what happens at Doral. See, what's going on with Woods and the other top players. So that's my bit. What you got, Bryce?
Well, I'm going to focus the upcoming weekend in the NHL, obviously with the trade deadline and the amount of just wild moves you've seen. Going into the weekend, seeing different players in their new uniforms, getting into their old teams. Obviously, longtime Tampa Bay Lightning forward Martin St. Louis being traded for Callahan and now being a New York Ranger.
That's interesting.
That's something that's going to be crazy as New York heads to Carolina on Friday, but obviously keeping it a little bit local. Big weekend for the St. Louis Blues, trying to really make that statement and give themselves an opportunity to be the #1 seed in the Western Conference and really make that trip to Lord Stanley's Cup come through the Midwest and come through St. Louis. Back-to-back road games on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, March 8th, on the road to Colorado, and then playing the second game of a back-to-back against the Minnesota Wild, another playoff contender. Both the Blues and the Wild have made some moves here before the trade deadline. Obviously, the Blues are 3-0 now with Ryan Miller in net as they traded Yaroslav Halak off to Buffalo, who was also then now traded for Neuwirth and a draft pick to the Washington Capitals. So former Blues goalie traded twice within a 4-day period, and now finds himself as a Washington Capital. So for him, at least he's got the NHL's leading goal scorer in front of him, and Alexander Ovechkin, to maybe help his goals against average and win percentage. So hey, maybe his goals against is going to go up, but at least his wins might go up as well with a guy that puts the puck in the net 44 times already this season. But But just again, with all of the trades and with all of the just crazy movement that we've seen in the NHL, this weekend is going to be, for me, it's going to be an absolute doozy. I mean, you've got nearly 24 games going off this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I don't watch much hockey, but I do pay attention to the table. And I mean, I know the Blues. It would have been awesome if they would have beat the Ducks when you were there. But I mean, I just saw the Ducks. I think they lost their last one.
Yeah, but the Ducks have been playing great hockey.
Oh yeah. But it'd be cool to see the Blues make it to number one, like you were talking about. If they can hold that top seed and make that run a little bit easier. I mean, I think if they're at the 2 seed, it's good. But number one would be nice for the fans, and see if they can eventually get that cup in. Because
and
St. Louis fans are tired of that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one of the few teams since the since the majority of the expansions, obviously the Blues coming out in 1967, still have not yet to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup. But it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, with the Blackhawks hot on their heels for the Central Division, a game in hand against Anaheim. But you've got so many big-name players that have been moved around. Obviously, Tim Thomas going to Dallas. I mean, is that team going to be good? Are they going to make a playoff push? Obviously, the Stars holding on or trying to hold on to that last playoff spot. The Phoenix Coyotes have made a couple small moves to try to bolster themselves out of the 9 slot in the West and into one of the final playoff opportunities. Oh, and by the way, how about the perennial powerhouse, the Vancouver Canucks, that have been on an absolute dry spell, I think winning 2 of their last 15 games, including 2 times being shut out 1-0 by the Phoenix Coyotes and Mike Smith.
It's crazy.
It is, and then of course, so what's the answer? Finally trade Luongo. Love it. His misery is my pleasure. It really is. But now Eddie Lack, the starting goaltender, and really they're going with 2 young kids that don't have a lot of experience and aren't proven in the NHL. And here they are, again, winning 2 of their last 15 and finding themselves on the outside looking in the Western Conference playoff picture. And then also, oh, by the way, you're playing an outside game and one of your best players, Daniel Sedin, breaks his ankle and is most likely done for the year.
Yeah, those outside games, that's something just to quickly touch on. I know...
they were horrible.
They just, I think the one at least at Michigan, you could see what was happening. I remember seeing photos about the game in L.A., and just seeing pictures of it, and people were like, oh, it's so cool, and everyone's head was turned this way to look up at the board because you couldn't see the match. Like, the stadium's just not made for it.
No.
At least an NFL or a big college stadium, the big house, and the NFL Soldier Field, it's vertical enough to where most of the fans can see what's going on. It's tiny, like, the NHL rinks and whatever. They're, that's like being an NBA stadium. It's not.
And the game in Vancouver, right? It was their stadium series, and the game in Vancouver that was played in the old Olympic Stadium there from the last Winter Olympics in Vancouver. They had rain. So it was raining, so they had to. It was a retractable roof, so they closed the roof. So essentially, your stadium series game that's supposed to be played outside and is this wonderful NHL spectacle of outdoor sport was turned into, so we could have just played in our hockey stadium normally, but instead we'll just move to a really big dome where no one can see what's going on.
Yeah, and that's one of those weird things about when you start looking at geography of some of this stuff. Obviously, LA, they didn't care. And I think in Vancouver, they didn't care. They were hoping it wouldn't be as wet. Like, they didn't, they're hoping no rain. But when you
at least they could close the roof.
Yeah, but like climate-wise, like that's they're just north of Seattle. Rain's going to be an issue. But the idea, it goes to the Winter Olympics in Vancouver. Like, Vancouver itself wasn't super duper cold. It might have been cold during the Olympics, but it's not. You think of it, Canada, it's icy, but Vancouver is actually okay. It's got that same sort of temperate drizzle thing going on that Seattle has.
45 and rainy.
Yeah, so I mean,
the Vezina was worse in LA.
Yeah,
You have the
yeah,
Ducks and the Dodgers playing at Chavez Ravine at Dodger Stadium, and it's hilarious. It's like how
yeah.
cold
That one was terrible.
it doesn't
But
hardly ever get below freezing in
yeah, I
LA.
just hope that they have a Winter Olympics sometime where there's actually snow on the ground everywhere. I don't know if that's important or not, since most of the games are indoors, but I don't
It
know.
makes a
It's
difference. There's a
it.
feel to it. Sochi is
Yeah.
cool,
What's the point? Yeah, Sochi was like having the Winter Olympics in New Orleans. It
pretty
it
much.
was warm. They've got palm trees. Like
Honestly,
that's nuts.
they would have legitimately been better served throwing the Winter Olympics in Atlanta because at
Yeah,
least it snowed there.
it was icy. Yeah, yeah. All right. So next week we'll probably do another beer review, or I guess we did a Scotch review earlier. We both drank from the fine bottles of Glenmorangie, and
Tallest distiller or tallest stills in Scotland. We
yeah,
learned.
tasty stuff. But next week I think I'm gonna switch to beers just because I've got a ton of beers I gotta roll through.
I've got a great
And
seasonal for you guys next
yeah,
week.
Bryce is gonna. I guess actually, Bryce, if you want to go ahead and tell people what you're gonna.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, put the beer out there that you're gonna have next week. That way, if someone watches, number one, if someone watches, and two, if they
When?
decide, oh, I'll drink the same thing that he's drinking.
Well, it's gonna be a Sam Adams Cold Snap. It's their new spring seasonal. It's the first time they've released this beer. It's fantastic. I've had it at a couple promotional events. Um, I got a free Sam Adams T-shirt and a hat out of the promotional event, which of course
There you
did
go.
not make it taste any worse. But it's genuinely a really good, really refreshing beer, and the name itself says so much to what it is. The Cold Snap. It's that spring flavor of we're snapping out of that cold winter weather and into that fresh green, rainy spring that kind of puts a smile on your face in the weirdest way. And it's a really, really refreshing beer.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that one plays out for you. I mean, you know what it tastes like, but during the tasting, I'm interested to hear about that. America's largest craft brewer, Sam Adams.
I'll have
Uh,
it in United Pint Glass.
yeah. And I'll have my beer in my Sam Adams pint glass. But my beer, which I thought I was going to have today, I was happy to drink Scotch with my Scotch brother, but is the Boulevard Brewing. They're out of Kansas City, Missouri. They only export out of state to about the states sort of surrounding Missouri. Unfortunately, they don't distribute that big of a range, but they're currently the largest brewer in the state of Missouri that's all American. Except no, they got picked up by a Belgium company. So I don't know who. I guess Schlafly is right now. But
Here.
that's going to change. Uh,
That'll get bought
uh,
out.
yeah. Well, the other thing is Urban Chestnut is going. Their plans are to open a 70,000 square foot thing. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. Their beer is delicious, but
Urban Chestnut does a fantastic job.
yeah. But so the Boulevard Brewing at their most of their labels more decorative, have a little bit clearer picture. This is, as you can see, tasting room. They had a bunch of beers that the brewmasters would get together. They'd be like, I want to do this. And then they'd put it in their tasting room, and that was the only place you could taste it. And they decided to take the ones that were really popular, or at least they thought were interesting, and put it in a special 12-pack. You got 2 tasting rooms, plus their standard Boulevard wheat, and I think the 80-acre ale, which was like maybe it's 40-acre. It's a half IPA, half wheat beer mix that's, I think, a really great sort of spring summer beer, especially if you're not too into IPAs yet. I think it's a good way to get into it. This one, though, is Mid-Coast IPA. It's big and bold. It's supposed to be like a California-style West Coast IPA. Over 100 IBUs. The hoppiest beer they've ever brewed. Pretty, as they say, pretty nervy for a bunch of Midwesterners. I've had one of these a few months ago, and it was good. And so I'm interested to see, like, really focus in on it and try it out and taste it with you guys. So if you can find it, if you're watching, check it out. It's good stuff. But all right, well, it's been a lot of fun. Can't wait to get back on with you, Bryce.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Spirits and sports. It doesn't get much better than that.
Oh no, this is the life. At least it's probably the second funnest thing you can do in a bedroom. But yeah. All right. So this has been Sports Report Weekly. Next week, I guess we'll touch in on. I don't know. We'll see what happens. What happens this weekend?
Tune in and find out.
Yeah, and probably talk a little bit of NFL draft and upcoming as well, and some of the big NFL. I guess not trades, but free agency things that have gone on, franchise tags, all kinds of stuff.
Big names out there, a lot going on. So
yeah,
plenty to discuss.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll catch you later. See you, Bryce.
Adios, guys.